everyone, and welcome back to our Citizens Crime Watch podcast. I'm Joe Bermudez, and we are here today to talk to you about some home safety tips. Spring break is right around the corner, and we want to give you some advice on leaving your kids home alone. And hopefully you'll feel a little bit better about doing that. So I'm here with Kathy.
Hello.
And as a new mom,
Yes.
we've had a few conversations here and there about kids and your worries.
Oh,
which
my
you still
God.
have a while to get there because yours is young, but we've had a few conversations about kids staying home alone, and I know that's something that's on your mind constantly with the kids we deal with Youth Crime Watch and stuff like that. So we're here to have a quick little conversation and give you guys a little bit of tips on leaving our kids home alone because it's that time of the year,
especially with Bermudez having two of his own that are older already.
That's all the gray hair that I have here. That's what it does.
And you have one of each. You have a boy and a girl, so you've lived through both hormonal stages.
Yes, and one's a little bit older teenager, and the other one's getting into these teenage years. So
it'll be fine. It'll be super fun.
Thank you.
So
prayers are with me, right?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
So you have good kids, though. They're very active. I love that.
Thank you.
So I think when it comes to home safety, the first question that most people should have is like, at what age or when is it safe to leave my kids home alone?
That's a great question that's posed out there all the time. And people ask a lot of times, what's the law say? And you know what? There really isn't a law that has a specific age that says when we leave our kids home alone,
right?
Or when they can be alone. It really all differs between kids. The best way to put it is, if they are comfortable staying home alone, and if you're comfortable with them staying home alone, they need to be able to, I guess I would say, fend for themselves, more or less. They got to be able to feed themselves somewhat.
Yep.
They got to know
how to use a bathroom.
Obviously. They got to be feeling comfortable safety-wise at home, not being terrified of every noise, creak that goes on in a house.
Yeah, I think when it comes to basics, they need to just be able to fend themselves basically, which is important. Like, I'm not looking for a kid who's able to cook or turn on the stove and the oven and bake a bunch of stuff.
Exactly.
I'm looking for a kid who can make themselves a sandwich.
Right. And
be able to hold off until mom and dad get home.
Yeah, they don't need to be able to do a 5-course meal.
Ideally, they wouldn't, even if they are able to.
If they do, then send them over my house because they train my kids that way. I don't have to cook. But they need to be able to. If they're hungry, they can go get something to eat. They know refrigerator, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And obviously cooking, if they are going to do something, they're careful with the oven, with a microwave. Things of that nature, that you're able to train them and get them comfortable with that.
So when it comes to safety, other than obviously the cooking and stuff we've already covered, I want to talk more about what should parents see? Like, what should their kids know to stay home alone safe?
Well, I think probably one of the number one things that we want to be able to train our kids is know their addresses, know their phone number, in case there is an emergency and they do have to call 911. And talk about 911, teach them what 911 is. They should be at that age where they know how to dial 911.
Definitely.
They know what to say, when to call it. It's important. They're able to communicate, what's going on. And like I said, 911 systems are very refined nowadays in the sense that when you call, they know where you're calling from. But they should be able to say, "This is my address. This is my phone number. This is my name." They should be able to have a good idea of that information. Another thing, just to talk about numbers real quick, is they should know their parents' phone numbers.
Yep, by heart.
A parent or a grandparent or someone that they can call in an emergency. We've become very comfortable nowadays in this world where, you just go to your contact list, tap the contact, and it dials for you. So
yeah, I was definitely raised in the age just before you don't no longer know phone numbers. So luckily, I still even to this day know my mom's office number, because back then cell phones weren't really that often used often.
right.
But I know my husband's number by heart. Ideally, I know my mom's cell phone. I know my mom's job. You want to know multiple numbers by heart, because if your phone dies or breaks.
Yeah, and it's important. I mean, and now we're talking about being home alone here, but it's good also to know if they're ever out and about somewhere, there's somewhere that they need to call somebody and they're not able to get to that contact list to look it up, that they could pick up any phone and dial and call someone. So it is important. So they need to know that kind of stuff.
Most definitely. Also, a big thing is we don't want the kids to just be quiet and not make noise while they're home, because ideally that's what a robber's looking to do. Like when they're trying to break in, they're looking for the quiet house.
Very true. Very true. I've come across a lot of parents when I teach and stuff, and I say, I tell them to just sit in their room and do nothing. I mean, realistically, you can't ask that of kids nowadays.
Definitely.
But you want to show some activity in the house. Maybe have some lights on and stuff like that. Have a TV on or a radio on and stuff like that. So if somebody does walk up to the house, it doesn't sound like the house is empty. And like on that note, when we talk about, what do we do if someone knocks on the door?
Right.
There's a couple of schools of thought on that. The one that I promote the most is you want to acknowledge someone knocking on the door. What I mean by acknowledge is you don't want to open the door and say, hey, come right in, what's going on?
Right.
But you want to, through the door, through a window. Some of us nowadays have the ability through video doorbells to speak to someone. So you want to acknowledge and say, hi, hello, can I help you? And let someone know, or let that person that's at the door know that there is someone home.
And you want to teach kids, if they're on the younger side, like if they're 10 or 11, let's say, and someone knocks on the door, you want to teach them not to say, Mom and Dad aren't home.
Exactly. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is say, hey, I'm here alone.
Yeah.
It's okay to say my mom's in the shower. She can't come to the door right now. Come back later. Anything of that nature. Feel free to fib a little bit. We tell our kids it's not good to lie, but there are times where you can do that little white lie and tell them, my mom and dad is busy right now.
Listen, I'm sure they're all lying to their friends about their gaming score and what level they're at or whatever.
Probably,
they can tell somebody that their mom's in the bathroom.
Exactly.
When it comes to playing, let's say in the yard, they're home alone. Maybe they want to play in the backyard. Maybe they want to go for a swim. We want to discourage that.
Yeah, that's a big, in my book, that's a big no-no. Just on the safety factor of it, the last thing you want to do is have them outside playing, doing some kind of sporting activity, and they fall and hurt themselves, and they're not able to call for help or call 911. They don't know how to have that access to get to the phone. And then swimming is a big no-no. I mean, even if you're the most athletic Olympic swimmer out there, the last thing you should be doing is swimming by yourself, because something's got to happen. You could bump your head, you could get a cramp. Something could happen where you're not able to help yourself. And there's been instances where people have drowned.
Yeah, most
swimming
definitely.
by themselves. So that's the last thing you really want to be outside and have that accessibility from a bad guy coming up when they're out there.
And we had talked, I had briefly mentioned gaming, but if your kids are going to be home gaming all day, which is most likely what's going to happen nowadays, you don't want them telling their friends, oh, I'm home alone, my parents aren't here, they're working.
It's a new challenge that we have nowadays with these kids, when it comes to gaming and stuff like that. And not even that, just social media. That's the last thing. You don't want to be posting, so bored, I'm here sitting home alone and stuff like that. Don't ever share that information.
No.
We're not saying that you can't let them be on social media. You can't let them be on gaming. Just this is where it comes into talking to them and teaching them to be responsible and not advertising the fact that they're alone.
You want to guide them into knowing that it's okay to not post your life on social media.
100%.
It's most of the time, 99.9% of the time it's fake. I would say 100% of the time it's fake. People like to live stream their life. Kids in particular like to do it, and they're like, oh my God, I hit 100 views on TikTok, and it's just not safe or needed in reality. You want to teach them that it's okay to be bored too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You don't have to constantly be doing something.
Exactly. And maybe it is a good idea to plan ahead as a parent.
Yeah.
If you know you're going to be leaving your child home alone for a while, find some stuff for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Invest some money and some time and get some arts and crafts.
Yeah.
If you know they're going to be home alone and they aren't, getting some gaming systems, teach them responsibly, but give them something to do, because the last thing is you want them is just sitting there idly bored.
Yeah.
Because we know what happens when you're idly bored. That's when they're going to get into trouble and do something
definitely.
that they shouldn't be doing.
And chores were always a thing in my house. Like you had on Wednesday, I remember it vividly. Wednesdays and Saturdays we cleaned the house. I would come home from school and I had to start cleaning the house. We all did clean the rooms. We'd have room inspections. I know parents aren't as strict as they used to be in the day, but that's not a bad thing. Hey, clean your room by the time I get home from work. That'll take them ages. They all procrastinate.
Give them some little projects. This is
exactly.
It's spring break. It's spring cleaning. Go through your closet and get rid of all your old clothes or something like that.
100%. And they take forever because they'll be watching Netflix or something on the way, or they're trying to social media while they do it. So it takes them 5 hours versus just them doing it in one. And then they have the rest of the day.
Right. No, for sure.
So what are some, I guess, to move this along a little bit, what are some things parents can teach their kids, or what can, like, when it comes to staying home alone, in the sense of like, what can parents do to prep for their kids to stay at home?
A lot of it is, like I said, just sitting down with them and teaching them. I think we've become a little complacent in our time, where we just expect, we expect our kids will know how to
do everything,
use a phone, or do everything,
or just YouTube it,
fend for themselves. Yeah, YouTube. that's a wonderful thing now. Listen, I'm guilty of it too. When I don't know how to do something, I YouTube it. There's a video out there for everything how to learn. But you just got to be involved, and that's one of the biggest things we talk about when it comes to child safety, and on any level when it comes to anything, is parental involvement. Just being involved and talk to our kids about it. Teach them. Like I said, we already talked about the numbers, knowing where to call, what to call, knowing where they live and stuff like that. Something that's really important, and it's something we can get into on a whole nother topic, but just gun safety.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a parent that has guns in your home, you want to make sure that they're locked up properly. You want to make sure you talk to your kids about them, and they know that when you're not home, it's not the time to go exploring and
I'm trying to find out how to play with things.
Let me see how this thing works.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you want done.
Definitely. You want to come up with emergency plans for everything as a family as a whole. That's
a great point. Emergency safety plans is something that we all overlook.
Mm-hmm.
Not just when you're home alone, but when you're home with your family. You want to have exit plans from your home. Teach them what to do if someone does break into the house. What are you going to do? How are you going to get out of the house safely? If a fire breaks out in the house, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? It's a good idea to have a good relationship with someone in your neighborhood, a neighbor that's someone you can trust. So if your child is home alone, you can send them over there to the house to seek help, or vice versa. If your child is home alone and something's going on, you're able to call that neighbor and say, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you just check in on little Johnny and make sure he's okay?
Yeah.
He's home alone." And it's someone that you trust,
definitely,
that you can call to check in. Little backup plan.
Well, and on the same plan, you want to, in the same line of thought, you want to have like a phone line. If not a phone line, at least an old phone that could dial out to 911 in case of an emergency.
Yeah, that's a good point. As technology has come along, we've evolved so much. And it's funny when we talk and I teach the groups and stuff, I ask the question, I said, how many of you still have a landline? And if I get 2 or 3 hands that raise their hands, or 2 or 3 people that raise their hands, it's incredible. A lot of us have gotten away from having phones in our home because we rely on our cell phones. That's what we live off of. And everybody's got one in their pocket. And
realistically speaking, every teenager I know, their phone's always dead or dying.
Well, that's a whole other point. I get that all the time. I get alerts all the time that my daughter's phone's got 9%.
Yep.
Tell her to charge it. So I got to call. Make sure you charge your phone. But I like to tell parents, if you have young children in your home, it's always a good idea for just that short period of time while they're kids, invest, and you don't have to have the all out phone plan. You have a basic line, just something that's basic that you can have a phone that you know that's always going to work. You don't have to worry about that. Is it charged? Do you have a good signal? You know, all the bars there. Is it 5G? What's going on? But it's a phone that you can pick up and you can call 911 if you have to. And teach our kids the same thing. Teach them that, listen, we have this phone here in the kitchen. We have this phone in the living room. It's here in case of an emergency. And maybe near that phone, you can write down, have a little pad, or something there. This is our address. This is our phone number.
Definitely.
When my kids were a lot younger, when we were teaching them, we actually had like a little dry erase board in our kitchen, right near the phone. And on there it said home address, home phone number, and we had our phone numbers on there as emergency contact. So if anything ever happened, it could happen. You could slip and fall and knock yourself out. And our kids have to be the ones to call 911 or call someone for help. They have to be able to do this.
Yeah, you need to teach them what exactly, we had covered this a little bit, but what exactly is an emergency? It's not even just home alone, right? It could happen, like you said, something happened to mom. Right. Exactly. Another thing is, we were talking about home alone, but what if they want to have friends over?
Well, that's a real touchy subject because this is where our teenagers, any teenage viewers don't like us to speak on this, but if you can avoid them having friends coming over, it's better to keep people that you don't know or not your own kids out of your house, because you don't know what's going on if they're not supervised. As a parent, I don't like having my kids over anybody's house unless I know there's a parent home. Yeah. That's what I always ask, when they ask, hey, can I go over to so-and-so's house? I ask, well, who's going to be there? I make sure that there's a parent there supervising. But you really don't want them to come over. Now, I know as our kids get a little bit older, it's going to be a little bit harder to control when they get to that 15, 16.
Because that's their best friend. That's like their sister or brother from another person. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah. So you just gotta kind of play with it a little bit in the sense of use good judgment. And, if it's a friend that, a close friend that you have a good relationship with the family and you trust them like you would trust your child, then I would say it's okay. But I would avoid letting them bring friends over.
Especially that you don't know. Definitely.
Exactly. You don't want them letting anybody come in, and on that topic, you don't want them opening the door to anybody, even if it is the kid down the block. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is, it should be when you leave in the morning, okay, your child should be locking up that house. You should be locking up that house with them. They should be locking up that house. They should know how to secure the house. Real quick, we talk about the alarm. If you want to talk about alarm panels, you should be training them how to use the alarm panels. If you have an alarm on the house, teach them how to turn it on, turn it off. A good idea, I always tell my kids when we leave is, they can set the alarm and they set it as like a stay-at-home setting, which is that what it does is it removes that delay. So they can put it on. That way, if a door opens or a window opens or something breaks, the alarm goes off immediately. You can do that. Teach them about the panic buttons. Most alarm systems have a panic button. So if it is something that they're scared of, they see someone outside or something happening, they can hit that panic alarm.
Not just that, when you said not to open the door, that includes Uber Eats, pizza deliveries. What else is there nowadays? Postmates, all these food delivery services.
It's a great service, and we don't want to knock them. It's something we've become reliant on. A lot of people become reliant on. But when it comes to our kids, the worst thing you want to do is ordering food for them and sending food to the house, because now they have to open the door to the stranger. They shouldn't be accepting packages from Federal Express or UPS or anything. Tell them, hey, listen, just leave it there on the door. And if it's something that says, they require a signature, my mom's in the shower. Again, my mom's in the shower. She can't come right now. I'll come back later. Yeah. And you can work it out later on. There's nothing that important that you need to be risking the safety of your child for them to be opening the door to anyone.
Yeah. And as a parent, if you maybe prep the meals before you went to work. That way you don't have to have something delivered, or even have the leftovers that you had delivered the day before. Because I know a lot of people don't have time to cook nowadays, like ready for your kid to heat up, where it's not like, well, I need to Postmate them or they don't have food because they can't make a sandwich or whatever the reason is.
Right.
You want to prepare the house for your kid to be there, like we had said about maybe having activities, but also when it comes to just food and things of that nature. Question: what if this child is older and has a car? Does this still apply?
That's where the gray hairs come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rules still should apply. The majority of them. Obviously, if you're letting them drive out around by themselves, you've given them a little bit more freedom. Mm-hmm. They've earned that trust from you.
Great.
To be out there driving around. So you can modify the rules a little bit, but for the most part, you should be able to kind of keep the same type of rules. Just minimize, people coming over, minimize them going out, being out by themselves. Because just because they're out there driving doesn't mean something can happen to them. Doesn't mean that they can't get hurt playing out in the backyard or get hurt doing something.
Something you want to teach them is when they pull in.
Yeah, what's really important is if they are out and about driving, when they come back home, teach them that when they pull into that driveway, to just do a little quick look around the property and make sure that everything's okay. You don't want them going out to make a run to McDonald's to get some food and they come back and they come back to someone breaking into the house. Mm-hmm. So teach them to keep, look around the house, make sure everything looks normal, like when you left.
Exactly.
And then it's safe to go back in. If not, again, this is where having a good neighbor that, someone you trust, have them drive to that neighbor's house. And from there, they can call the police and the police can come and check the property, check the house, make sure that everything's okay. But just tell them they need to be just as aware as us as adults. Mm-hmm. It's things that we should be doing as adults too. When we come home, is just doing a quick look at your house and make sure that everything's okay and you're not walking into danger.
And then what if there are other little kids? I think the big thing is that just because there's an older sibling, it's not okay just to train the older sibling. You want to make sure the little ones still know that, like, hey, even though the older sibling's saying mom's in the shower, she's not available to come to the door. The little kid's like, no, she's not. She's at work. What are you talking about?
You got the younger one snitching on you, saying, he's lying. No, he's lying.
We're home alone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you do have to train them at different levels, but you kind of have to have them on the same page. Mm-hmm. We do that a lot with the older siblings. We kind of give them that authority to be the big brother, the big sister, and be in charge. But you don't want to put too much responsibility on them and make them so fearful that they got responsible not only for their own lives, now they're responsible for their little brother or little sister's lives. Yeah. So you kind of want to keep the rules the same. Same things. You don't want them opening doors. You don't want them going outside. And they can maybe going outside's a little bit safer
because there's multiple.
Because there's a couple of them. Something happens, one of them can call, but they both should be able to dial. Even the small one should be able to dial 911 or know how to call 911 if something happens. I would avoid them swimming though. I'm still a little bit against them out there swimming by themselves.
Definitely.
No child should be swimming unsupervised by an adult. Even adults shouldn't be out there really swimming by themselves because, like I said, something could happen to you as well. But you can adjust the rules a little bit here and there. But for the most part, you need to, when it comes down to it, they're still kids.
Yep.
And, and they still haven't matured enough to make adult type decisions.
Definitely.
So we got to kind of give them some parameters to keep them safe.
Well, I think we have covered a lot today, and hopefully this helps people keep their kids safe. We understand that not everybody can afford to put their kids in camps and daycares or has the time to take them to 1,000,001 activities. So it is a valid thing that majority of the people keep their kids at home. I mean, I was the youngest of 4, and I was home with my older siblings since I can remember. I think I was like 5 or 6, and I was already staying home with my siblings because it's when your family is 6, you don't have the money to spend on the daycare and all that. So this is a valid thing that we should talk about to keep our kids safe.
Yeah, no, definitely. We have to be realistic in today's days society that it is happening. And it's doable. It's something that is doable nowadays because of the technological advances, I guess you want to say.
Definitely.
I mean, we have the ability to put cameras. I mean, you can put cameras in your home. You have surveillance cameras on the outside of your home. You have cameras on the inside. You have video doorbells. You have all these different things accessible nowadays that you can use to make it a little bit safer. If you feel that nervous about it,
and it's an investment.
Put a drop cam in the living room so you can see what's going on.
And it's definitely an investment. But they even sell webcams that you can put inside your house for like $20 that connect to the Wi-Fi and you can check it. And so it's gotten a lot more accessible. And especially if you have little kids. I mean, my kid is only 1.5 years old, and I already have cameras inside my house just so I can be able to be like, okay, everything's okay.
So you're checking yourself, making sure. That's a good thing. As a parent, if you're out and about. It's good if you have these systems, use them.
Yeah,
that's what they're there for. So it's okay for you to check every now and then, to get on the cameras and make sure, what's going on the perimeter of your house.
Exactly.
And if you have these drop cams that you can just put inside the house somewhere, pop in every now and then and see what's going on. You can set alerts if there's motion and stuff like that.
Definitely.
So you can do things like that. The only other thing I would probably tell parents is don't jump into this maybe full force. I mean, you don't want to be like, all right, spring break tomorrow. You're all first time you're by yourself, and you're going to be gone for 8 to 10 hours. One of the things that we did, like my wife and I, is we tested the waters a little bit. So it's like, okay, really, we're going to go to Publix, okay, or we're going to go get some food real quick. Yeah. So it's you leave them home alone for like 30 minutes,
exactly,
45 minutes, and you get a little more comfortable. You build up to it. Yeah, you can increase the distance and time a little bit and work your way up to that. But and that gives them a little confidence as well. Yeah. They know, okay, mom and dad's not going to be gone for 10 hours, but we know that, hey, they'll be back in like 20, 30 minutes. I got this.
Yeah.
And if they can survive 20, 30 minutes, they feel good. And the next time is like an hour. Maybe you go out to dinner with your spouse. For the night.
Or a Costco run that takes like 3.
That takes a little bit longer, exactly. But, you extend it out a little bit. They know, okay, I survived 30 minutes, I survived an hour, and eventually they get to the point where they can survive the whole day.
And it makes them feel good. Kids thrive with structure, but not just that. When you give them the confidence and they live up to the expectation of, okay, you survived, that helps boost their confidence, and it makes them feel totally. Okay, maybe my parents aren't treating me like a little kid, even though I'm almost 20. I'm 29 and my parents still call me constantly. They're like, "Where are you?" And I'm here like, I have a husband and a kid.
I think that's always parents.
That's always going to be a thing.
As they get older, you still worry.
So
forever. So
I don't mind, because I call them all the time, and they're like in their 60. They're about to be 60, and I'm here like, "Where are you guys? I haven't heard from you in like 3 hours. What's up? Why haven't you called me?"
Yeah, it goes. It's a hard thing. I don't know how to explain it, and it's funny.
You'll never stop worrying.
You never do. I mean, my mom said she calls my wife and if she doesn't answer in like 20 minutes, I get the phone call.
Oh, that's
where's she at? Is she okay? I'm like, oh, yeah, she's sitting right next to me.
That's exactly what. And if my husband doesn't answer, they call a house phone.
Exactly. So.
And then they drop it.
I think it's just a parent thing. But you know what? That's what you got to do as a parent.
Definitely.
And we're just saying it's okay to leave them home alone. Just teach them, make them responsible.
Yeah.
It's a group effort. You got to teach them, and you got to make them responsible, and then you got to let them be responsible. But you can do it. We can all do it. Well, we hope that we made you feel a little bit better about leaving your kids home alone during this spring break season. This is just the tip of the iceberg on crime prevention tips that we have out there. I mean, feel free to go back and watch some of our other podcasts that's full of a lot of useful information that can apply in any of these type of situations. So I thank Kathy for being here and joining me in this conversation. And we look forward to being back with you soon on some great new topics. And remember, crime prevention starts with you.